my name is Eileen Neuer, and so I am on the board for Rancho Cordova Arts, and we do everything we can to make arts as accessible as possible. And so what that means is trying to make art as art for everyone, really, making it inclusive. So if there's a way that we can reach out to the community, then that's what we want to do. And so today I've been so excited to introduce you to Leanne Hamilton. I met her a few years ago, and at an art warehouse that we both have work at, and I just adore her work. It's so vibrant. It's she has such an understanding of color and such an understanding of value. Like immediately you see that in her work. Her work, it draws you in. And she's actually a really speed painter as well. If anyone feels like they procrastinate on a painting, her style is she just goes for it. And I just love that about the way that she does her work. And so she's going to be giving you, she'll explain what the agenda is. And so she will be doing all of that on value. And then at the end, I'm going to play a screen, what do you call it? Like a time-lapse video of, to give you an idea of a art project you can do. Because if you do live in the Rancho Cordova area, or you're a member of Rancho Cordova Arts, you can submit your work to an upcoming show, and the show is called Black and White +1. So this workshop ties in with that theme, and Black and White +1 just means you're looking at values and then adding in one color as like a highlight. And so at the end, I'll be showing you a time-lapse video of how I did this. So this is a, I hope that, I don't know if you can see it good enough. Anyway, so yeah, that's what you'll see. Just as an idea, it's actually a collage. It's a painting collage because I painted the swatches and then turned it into a collage. So anyway, I will hand it over to Leanne, and thank you everybody for joining. I'm just delighted. One other thing, if you have questions throughout the workshop, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself, because Leanne loves to have that interaction. So if you have a question, you're also welcome to type it, and then I'll say, oh, by the way, we have a question from this person. So you're welcome to type it in, or you can just unmute yourself and just say, oh, Leanne, how did you do X, Y, and Z, or what paintbrush are you using? Or if you have a question, just feel free to go ahead and ask. All right. Well, I'm now going to hand it over to Leanne. So
okay, thanks, Eileen. That was great. So I'm Leanne, and I think the best way to start this is to share with you guys a quick speed video, if that is okay. And this is the process that I'm going to go through. Is I'm going to show you this persimmon painting. Then I'm going to be painting some lemons with you guys. I don't know whether you can see down here. I've got one camera showing my palette and the canvases. So I'll do my color theory, which is the most important part of painting the values, in more detail when I paint the lemons. And then I'll do an apple demo as well. Okay. So just so that you get an idea, this is just 20 seconds here to show you this process. Is everyone able to see that? Eileen, can you see that?
Yes, it came up. Yep.
Okay.
Ah.
So it's just the dark values from blocking it in, dark values, medium light, and that's it. Start from the dark to the light. And then there's different colors that you can put in your darks, warm, and light, which I'll explain now. Okay, that's what you're going to learn.
Yay.
All right. So the first thing that I do when I'm going to be painting values is taking a photograph of what I'm going to be painting. So here I have a blade of lemons. All right, hope you guys can see them. And I've gone and put them out in the sun, and where I've got nice strong shadows. And I just took a photograph with my cell phone, and I pasted that photograph up here, printed it out and put it up here. What I do is when I'm in the studio and I'm teaching students, I actually take a Sharpie and I mark the lemon. I don't know if you guys can see it maybe on this camera more or up here, but I mark the lemon with a Sharpie where the lights and the darks are. And that just helps. I mean, I'm moving the lemon around, so that's obviously the lights and darks are moving. So that's why I've taken the photograph and I'm going to mark it on there. But if I'm doing this for myself, I could just mark it straight on the lemon, and it just makes it so much more obvious for me, right? And obviously the dark is just the darkest dark. So I'm marking off where the darkest dark is. And this is a great tool for students to learn to see, because the first thing in learning to paint values is to see the values. So you've got to make it blatantly obvious where the values are. You may be able to see them now, but then when you start painting, you forget what you're looking at. So it's good to mark it on there and keep it right there. So what I would do is I take that out in the sun, and you can see this first one I took a few days ago had very soft shadows because it was an overcast day, and that was no good. It's not, I mean, I painted a couple. These two here were from this picture with very soft shadows, but it's not as interesting as a strong shadow. So when you're beginning, it's far better to shoot for a strong shadow. So I'm going to mark this up here. And you'll see, I could also go around the outline, but that's just very hard when I've got no backing on my paper. And here it's interesting because I have the darkest dark area is not on the edge of the lemon because there's reflected light there. Is everyone able to see that? Well, if you can't, just shout. Okay, so I mark it out there, and then I can see where the darkest and the light is. And I would also put out the shadows, you know, mark those out. So they're like super obvious. And just so I get a feel for the shapes, right? So it's like a practice run. Okay, that's my first step. And I would say that's my most important step, is actually marking it up like that. Then the second step for me is I'm going to switch to this phone here. Can you all see that? Okay, so the second step was, you can see these two here, I have the darker shadows because it came from this a different picture up here, and these are my two lighter shadows. So you can see within the shadows, there's a lot of variation of color because I don't use black. I use a chromatic black. So that means mixing of my primaries. So I'm going to go through that color palette process for you now. And then we're going to paint these up, chop, chop. They're just oil sketches. Okay. So I'm going to put my palette over here so you can see it just briefly. Let's see how I can do that. Oh, it's a little close. But you just for a quick, just to let you know, I have red, yellow, and blue. So primaries only, okay, and a big thing of white. Now the red, this is I have the color, obviously the primaries, but I also have temperature. So this is the colder red, and this is the warmer red. So relative to each other. So this is alizarin, and this is cad red light. And then my yellows, I have cad red medium, and a lemon, cad lemon. And then with the blues, I have a colder and a warmer blue. So this is key to mixing values, because if you want to be doing the cooler parts of a shadow, then you're going to be doing that. And then the warmer parts of the shadow, you're going to be adding in some of the warmer blue. So having the cold and the warm is very important for the value mixing. So I think with the big camera, the camera that's further away, you can see my palette a little better.
Leanne, what blues are you using?
Sorry?
What blues? Is that cerulean and ultramarine?
Oh yeah, it's cerulean and ultramarine. So French ultramarine is my favorite cold blue. Phthalo is also very cold, but it's too much for me. Yeah. And then this is cerulean, but I also like a cobalt teal. Let me fetch that. It is super, super light and warm. I don't know whether you can see that. It's very light. It's almost too light. So the cerulean is sort of like a reasonable warm blue. But you can change this up. So you don't have to stick to completely the same palette every single time you paint. You can choose a cold and a warm that sort of fits if you're painting blue water or whatever. What is your mood? Whatever your mood is. Like if you want to have a very, like a cobalt teal instead of cerulean, go for it. So long as you have a warm and a cold of each primary, it doesn't matter, in my opinion. It doesn't affect anything. It's just having that cold and warm, it helps you to create better values overall. Of course, your color palette is your like signature look. So you'll form your own favorites, and in no way should a painting be like a photograph. It's not a photograph. So it's your interpretation of which colors resonate with you. So long as you have a warm and cold one, you're able to get the full range of values. So for my dark, because I've obviously got some shadows on here, I want to mix up the darkest value that I can. So it's a chromatic black. So it's going to be all my primaries together, right? And of course, that's not going to be black. It's going to be like a dark browny color. If I add more blue, it's going to tend towards more blue. If I add more red, it's going to tend towards more purple or red. And so that color is going to, that dark is going to be vibrant. Okay. So I'm going to block in my main shapes here. This thing is bent. So I think I'm in the middle there for you. So here I don't get myself too worked up about drawing accurately because I have plenty of chances and time to fiddle with this and, you know, tweak it. But I am trying to get the idea of a square plate because that's what I'm painting here. And I have a lemon at the bottom. I'm just using a white because I primed in blue so that I can see what I've done. So this whole process is about 15, maybe 20 minutes almost, and it'll be done, just so that you know. And you'll see time-wise, some of these steps in the beginning take up way more time than the like grand finale when everything pulls together. So I have this dark area here. So I draw in the shadows the same as I do the fruit, as if it's a thing. It's a thing that I'm painting. It's a whole object. And I draw in the lines that I've done here. So that I can't see that line so well, but so these are all things that I draw in. So I know that looks like a mess, but those are all the values drawn in. Okay, so then we go from dark, and you'll see this is messy, it's not perfect, it doesn't look neat. The neat stage comes at the very end when I want to finesse something. Right now I'm blocking in my darkest colors. So this, I'm thinking, oh, do I like this color? It looks a little, I don't know, it's just a bit weird. So I'm going to add a little bit of a lighter blue because I have some there. And creating some variation in your shadows is so good. And I come back and I do everything twice. So I'll come back and touch up these shadows, reshape things, but I'm got to block in the masses now. So we're working from the big masses. And the darkest darks are where we start. So I'm painting on this picture here, it's
the shadows. You see, I'm not tidy. It's not all finessed. It's just a basic idea. And then this here, I need to get a little bit of dark on the side of the plate. Okay, and now I'm going for a more reddish dark. I haven't pre-mixed my paint. I mixed it right here in front of you. Just so you know, it takes no time. I've chosen a slightly redder dark because as I was mixing it, I got some variation there for my lemon. But I can go anywhere with these colors. I could have gone a little bit more purple. I could have gone a bit more green. The big problem with lemons is people make green shadows because you're adding blue to your yellow. I'm making an orange one right now, but that's just, it's kind of like an underpainting. You've got to think of this as more as an underpainting. This is not the final thing, although it does happen quickly. So shadows are theoretically made of the local color, so yellow, because this is a lemon, plus blue, plus the complementary of yellow, so a green. So there is going to be a little bit of green in there if you want to do a super realistic lemon shadow. So it's those three things make up the color of a shadow. But you don't have to put all of that in exactly like that. There's a lot of expression in there. So long as you get the right value, there's a lot of room for play. Okay, so I've got the darkest values in, and then I like to come in and do my lightest because right now everything's dark and I can't see what is going on. So I need to come in with some of my lightest values. Once again, this is just blocking in, and I will come and redo this and give this a little bit of color and whatnot. But now I'm going to block in the lightest values. What do we have there? And I'm being careful not to touch the different blocks of paint because then I'm going to drag that paint around, and that's so messy. The opportunity to drag it is right at the end. And that's when you blend it all and soften the edges and make it all look like it's one thing. But right now I'm being very careful not to. Okay, I think this comes here. And so you can see I get plenty of opportunities to draw. Like that first time that I was drawing was not my only chance to draw. I can see, look at it now and see if I'm liking the shapes or not. Like here, I can see I've forgotten part of my shadow. I've overridden it. Okay. And here I'm just dragging that paint that I put there already. Just to get a medium dark. So you can see that map that I did with the Sharpie is all important. Like that is what's holding this thing together right now. But at the same time, there's tons of scope for self-expression. I'm not doing a photographic rendering of the lemons, but it will look quite realistic. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a special request. Is it okay? Sure. So the picture of the lemons, is it okay if you bring it close down next to the oil painting that you're doing?
Yeah.
That'd be really helpful.
I thought it would be visible on the one camera, but it's not on this one. So is that better?
Yeah, that's, or yeah, if you can move both a little across to the left.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. I spotlighted this this camera so that way it always stays on. So right now it's on close up with the
oh, I see. It's not on the big one.
And if you want to change that back, you can just let me know and I'll take off the spotlight.
All right. So does that help everyone? You can see the values. So if I'm sitting in front of these lemons, I would just have them marked up with actual Sharpie. And I do that for students that I'm teaching in person. But obviously this is much easier for this class. And of course I do this myself in practice. I take a photograph and mark the photograph. Even if it's a bunch of flowers or anything like that, really complex, I'll share another image later. But I mark up tons and tons of lines on a more complex image. This is super simple, so that I get more values. You know, like a magnolia when you get the light and dark. Okay, so now we're painting lemons. We've got to shoot for some cad red medium. So this is my main color, undiluted. This is the bulk of the lemon. And then you'll see I didn't mark up the highlights, but there's a highlight on each lemon, and that'll be our third value. And once again, I'm not going to mix right away, which may look odd to you, but the nature of oils is that that gets muddy very quickly. So I don't want to be doing that. I will mix later, like it will be blended, but not now. Because what you don't want is be dragging brown and all the other colors around on your brush. And this is kind of, you can think of this as an underpainting. So I'm sort of getting my values in, I'm blocking in my values as much as the shape. And the temperature, you can see I've got like a warm shadow here. I could change that and add a little blue because I don't want a solid, like, what's that, maroon shadow. And the biggest thing at this point is what's going on in your head. This is too often people start like, oh my gosh, that doesn't look like a lemon. That doesn't look right. What about this? What about that? I've messed it up. That you've got to shut that voice right down and just relax into it a bit. Okay, so I'm putting on quite a bit of paint so that I can mix it. So here you can see there's the reflected light. So I will later drag in some darks into here. But for now, I want this to predominantly be more of this reflected color. And that's what makes this process so quick, is because you have everything laid out and then you just blend it and there's no strain. And even the shape I can change a bit. Okay, and you can see I'm using quite a big brush. I'm not being too fussy here. Okay. So now we're going to go on to a bit of lemon, get some lemon on there. It's the cad light with white. And of course here this is going to get a bit blended. But I just want to get that onto the canvas and then I'll finesse it. It's kind of like buttercream frosting, you know, you kind of want it on there first and then you can move it around. Okay, so these shadows need a little bit of, I don't know, a bit more. You can see there's a lot more variation in there. So let's get some blue. I feel it needs a little cooler tone and maybe darker. So all I do is wipe my brush and then I should be able to move some of this around. There's some more reflected light here I'll come to in a minute. I've totally forgotten about this dark area. It's just a little darker there. So you can blend a lot or a little, and that's your personal technique and style. I'm going to be blending very little. I used to blend a lot, like years ago I blended everything to, you know, super smooth. Whereas now I kind of like to have strategic brushwork. So I need some more yellow coming through here. And there's a bit more. On a white plate, you get a lot of reflected light. So there's the subtleties in there, which I'm using a big brush and I'm painting a tiny canvas, so I can't get all of that in there. But I can hint of it. Okay, so what was once maroon
is less maroon now. You've actually got to let go of that color that you saw in the beginning and look away and come back, because otherwise you don't accept the new color in your mind. And that's it. So it really allows you a lot of scope for playing with the colors in your shadows. And I feel the shadows are the most interesting part of a painting. Like right now, they're kind of flat, but I'm going to come in and make those a little bit more interesting with a bit more color. That's why I've got the 2 blues on my palette. So it gives me some play there. I've actually got so much yellow, I have to wipe it off. So once again,
Leanne,
yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
You make this look so easy. My question is, how do you manage to mix the colors and sorry about noise,
Oh,
and not make it look muddy?
Okay, so the trick to making it not muddy is don't use black. I've used only primary colors here, so I've got a dark brown pretty much, but if it's overwhelming, I can just add, like here it was too dark for me, I added some bright blue, cerulean blue. I can always come in and add yellow, and it'll never go muddy, so long as I don't drag this everywhere. So if I don't, you can see my brush work, I'm finessing it, but I'm not going to take this dark over there. I'm going to keep wiping my brush so that I'm not dragging that paint around. But if you're not using black, it won't go muddy. So black has a place. I've got this painting back behind my easel, which I'm not sure you can see, but I painted that over a dry underpainting, so I couldn't drag anything up. And of course, if you can see the way I'm holding my brush, I'm very light, and I'm not trying not to drag a lot of the paint up. But I need to control this dark. It's a little too much, right? And it's a slow process. I mean, at times it feels painfully slow, but actually when you look back, the whole thing's only taken you 20 minutes. But this here, you've just got to be patient and maybe even a little playful, you know, like let other colors come in. Like, I'm not sure if that's too dark. I'll see later. I can always change it. But while I'm here, I'm going to lighten up some of the shadow back here, because the shadow is not equally one color. And this, too much paint.
I'm just in awe of how quickly these lemons are coming together.
Yeah, and this one here, you can see it's still in the abstract phase. And all I'm going to do now is I'm wiping my brush super clean. And then I'm going to play with it. And I'm going to see, maybe I want this one to be more red. Not because it's red there, but just because of what looks nice to me. But you can definitely go for a very neutral dark if you want. In that case, it would look like photorealistic. I just feel there's a lot of expression in the shadow, and I like to play with that color a bit. And you can see it's much lighter in there, but it's darker down here. So that's the thing with oils, is you can layer it. And so long as you don't dig deep as you brush and, you know, scratch those colors up, you can place it on top. And the reason why I stick with a primary palette is because then I can control my colors so much better. The only color I would ever add to my palette in normal life would be 2 browns, like a burnt sienna and a burnt umber. I can make brown, but they're very neutral browns, and it's nice for landscapes when you want everything to be very neutral and earthy.
So you don't have to lighten with white. Notice the only place white happened was in the highlight. Okay. Because if I'm going super slow for you guys here, I should speed it up. Okay, and you can always leave it for a few hours and then like, oh my gosh, that one brush stroke is really bothering me, and you come back and fix it. So this is just getting the bulk of it in. You always need to, I know this looks, the paint is so thick, but we need to get almost a white highlight somewhere. That's just the whitest part. Okay, so this is looking a little too yellow here. So then I go and finesse my plate a little bit here. Let's see. So even with the white plate, there's going to be parts like this part, because it's square, is a little bit darker than this here in the middle. And a little cooler. And then the parts that are in the sun, I try not to do too much straight up white. I try and add just like a breath of yellow here to make it, so it's warm light, right? It's like a warm plate because it's in the sun. And because I'm doing a second layer of paint on now, I'm actually able to get it quite thick and chunky if I want. And every time you do this process, it turns out completely different. I've painted this painting here like 3 times already. Oh, my plate is not straight. And each time I choose slightly different colors, take a different direction on it. And that's just how it is. It's not photography. Okay, and this edge of the plate is also weird. I'll come and straighten that up now when I do my background. So I don't mind leaving a little bit of blue from the background here and there. It's just part of the way I paint. I don't mind that. So this shadow is a little light. I don't know why I went that light there. We can go a bit darker again. So you see I start with the darkest dark in the shadows, and then they lighten up. So I'm going back to my French ultramarine, and I'm just going to tidy up my edges here. Make my lines a little straighter. You can see why I didn't need to fuss with the drawing in the beginning. There's so many opportunities to fix it later. Okay. I've sort of made, and my drawing isn't accurate, like it's not exactly like the picture. I can see that. I mean, if I wanted it to be, I could spend a bit more time on that. That's not the point. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The lemons
because the paint is wet, I can see there on my screen, they look like they're super shiny because the white is so different from the other stages. I could take that down a bit, or I could leave it like that. I can, depends. And also the way it's coming up on the screen, this is looking very, like the photograph isn't as vibrant. But that's, with the way I'm looking at it, the difference isn't that big from here, from the screen. So yeah, that's the lemons. I have done a couple of others, and I just want to show you how different they can all be. So that was our first, that take on it. This one here I did yesterday. You can see it's drier, so it's not shining as much. The shadows are a little bit more red, maybe. Oh, I haven't added in the leaves. I forgot about that. I've left it there. I'll add that in right now. And then this one I did on a red background. So it came out in different colors, and I put a little bit more pink on the plate, reflected pink. And you can see as soon as it dries, it doesn't shine as much. So let me just add in the, so on my palette here, I just want to bring it back in front of you guys. I leave space for green. So I just go ahead and mix myself some sort of a green here. This is very limey. And it's as easy as that. And these are more natural greens than what you would get out of a tube. Stuff. Same big old brush I'm using here. Tidy up. I could finesse this for hours and hours, but I usually don't. Certainly there's some finessing needed here. Okay. All right. So that's the basics of it. The key points I just want to tell you guys again was marking it up. So marking it up here on this drawing, and then starting with the darkest. You can see there's a different color with the lemon and the shadow. So you can try and capture that, or you can just use a dark, which is your 3 primaries all together in different balances. Like you can go more blue, you can go more purple, you can play with that. Keeping it strictly blue is very boring and not, it's not really correct. You can see it's not blue, it's something else that's dark. It's a very neutral dark. Apart from on the lemon, which has obviously the yellow, it's going to be a bit warmer, the shadow. I'm seeing that this lemon is a really weird shape here now that I'm looking back. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or do you want me to show you the apple painting? Do another demo on the apples. I
mean, that's excellent examples of how to mark off the values. That really helps.
Some examples. Okay, yeah. Let me do that. I've got the flowers I was talking about. So let me share that with you. So this is a demo that I had. It looks more complicated, but it's not really. But marking off the light and dark shadows on a magnolia. So I do that a lot for all subjects, and it just makes painting easier, quicker, because I paint alla prima mostly, which means wet and to wet. So I just do it in one sitting like that, and it's done. So you want to be able to see that pattern quickly. Like it's you seeing it and you've got to interpret that. And it's just easier if it's actually just marked out for you. You'll see if you do this process, it just makes it so quick and easy and you can't get it wrong. So then you can relax and enjoy the process and start playing with different elements a little bit more, because you're going to come up with something that when you step back and look at it, it's like, hey, that's got tons of values in there and it looks kind of realistic, but interpreted, you know, playful. And of course you can go very realistic. I've done that in the past. When I say very, I mean more realistic. You know, I've painted, let me try and put this in front of you here. Like painted stuff that is a little bit more blended, but it's exactly the same process. You start off with not blending the values together. So you put them on and don't let them touch each other. And then you just let them blend a little bit, just cross that over. And that's your brushwork. You can play with that a lot or a little. That's up to you. Yeah, does that answer that? So I have also here some apples that I've painted a bunch of. And it's the same thing. I marked off that line, and then I had a little area here that was slightly lighter. So this is the dark shape here. And practicing seeing these shapes, like take photographs and mark it up with a Sharpie. That's all you can do is practice, and you can see clearly where I had those shapes. And then I just did a light green and a dark green, and that is it. There's the apples. Super quick. And every time I do it, it's slightly different. Like here's one that's you know, slightly different configuration, but there's a line there. There's a line there. It goes up here a little bit, here and there. And then I just have the lighter area. And you can see my brushwork is very rough, and the whole thing doesn't take very long. But when you step back, they look like apples.
Leanne, sorry to interrupt. Is it okay if you stop screen sharing, and that way it'll come up
Yes.
on your other? Yeah, I've pinned it, but because of the screen sharing, it wouldn't come up. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I'd done that. So do I need to go over that again because you couldn't see, or?
Please, would you?
With the apples?
Yes.
Okay. So these apples, I took photographs. I haven't got the printouts with me right now. I didn't think to do that. But literally, I just took, this is a bowl that I have in my house, put the apples in, put them in the sun. You can't take these pictures inside. You don't get the same sharp shadows. And that's what you're looking for. And then I just mark that. And if I get it slightly wrong, when I'm marking it, it doesn't matter. When I'm painting it, I'll see that and I'll adjust the shape slightly. So you just want to get the darkest area in there and mark that. Even though it looks weird, it's like, what is that, you know? When you put it in, when you put it onto your painting, it all makes sense. And then this is slightly more blended, but you can see my very rough brushwork. And then this is obviously a hard line, so I didn't blend that. I have more apples for you. So sometimes people get like, it looks like there's light and dark areas in here. I saw that and that was like a last stage thing that I did. But the original shape was around here. Like that. And then super dark in there. And then I literally just painted in those areas, blended ever so slightly so it looked okay, and that was it. It isn't any more than that. I know that seems like it couldn't be that, but that's exactly what it is, okay? So here on this one, I haven't marked it up, and if you want, I can actually mark it up now for you. So here the shadows are soft because we had an overcast day, so it's not ideal, but I would choose that darkest area like that, and you see how that's excluded.
because it's lighter. And then we have a dark area there. And of course, it's like shades of gray. It all varies. I mean, we can argue where that is exactly, but this is the darkest area. There's a little bit lighter there. And I could, you know, also add in reflected light, but I don't go that far. It's too complicated. You just want to get 3 values on there, and that is enough to make that thing look good. And everything has at least 3 values. Some of them are close together, and some of the values are far apart. Like this painting here, the values are very far apart. It's almost like white to black, well, darkest. But sometimes you can have those values be closer together. Like in this one, there isn't a very dark on there. So here the shadows are really just like a warm blue. There's nothing really on there. And again, this is the darkest area. I had it marked out there, here, there, and there. This is the image for that. So that is the areas that I've marked there. It's darkest there. This little reflected area underneath, and here. And the rest is just blending. So if you want, I can put on the apple demo. You can see me painting those apples exactly the way I've just explained it. Blocking it in, keeping the colors kind of separate, and then blending. Does anybody have any questions about the color palette and keeping the limited colors or color mixing in general? No.
Well, I do. Could you just, before you're finished, give us the names of the colors one more time so I can scribble them down?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, just when it's
So
appropriate.
for me, for my blues, I use a French ultramarine. I either use a cerulean blue or a cobalt for the warm blue. And just talking about blues, I want to stop for a minute and just show you. It's a rather large painting, but it's of water. Let me see if I can get it in the view here. But I've got 2 different. Can you see that painting at all?
It's in a small picture. It's not the,
Yeah, it's not in the main one.
well, we're gonna get it pinned.
How do we do that?
Sorry, I'll do that right now.
Can you do that, Eileen? It's so hard to move around the studio when I've got to show a close-up as well. Oh, there we go. So you can see I have a cerulean blue at the top, and I have a French ultramarine and a phthalo blue at the bottom. So just using temperature, I got the sense of depth and color. So that color palette thing is just very helpful, and it makes it really simple. You know, there's no magic involved.
Mhm.
Okay. So where was I? Oh, on the color palette. So with the blue, it's French ultramarine and then either cobalt or cerulean. You can look through the color catalog and say, hey, I prefer this warm blue and this cooler blue. But those are the 2 that I like, and I feel the French ultramarine goes very far. It's like a classic. You want to keep that. And then my reds, the alizarin is a cold red, if there's such a thing. It's sort of like a bluey red. It's really dark, and I always use that as my darkest red. And then I like cad red light, which is almost an orange, but it gives a nice warmth to something that's red, because you don't want it to go pink. Like if it's a red apple, for example, you don't want to go pink. So you don't want to have a red apple and add white. There's nothing pink on an apple, you know, but you want to be able to go lighter. So the cad red light helps you do that. And then with my 2 yellows, my warm and cold, I have cad yellow medium and light, or lemon. Okay. And that doesn't move. Like that I keep no matter what I'm painting or what style. And I do a bunch of different styles, but that stays the same.
because it just gives me that flexibility
Thank
to
you.
manage my colors. And from that, you can mix anything. And on the palette, I have space then for green, which would be up there. I just mix my blues and my yellows together. And I always have it in this layout. And I do darks down here as I'm picking up darks. I'll pull them down here and with the white. So the color, the palette is actually key to being able to mix values easily. Because I mean, you can always do this the hard way, like straight from scratch, figure it out every single time. And every brush stroke is its own little problem. Like, what color is that brush stroke going to be? That's a huge problem. That can take you forever. You can be standing there for like hours and hours figuring that out, weeks. So if you just do it like this, it gives you a methodology that you're safe inside of it, and you're doing it in a way that's pleasing to you, and tons of scope for personalization and your own color favorites and how you want to interpret that. Yeah, it's just an easy way to do it.
I see we have a question from Florence. What light do you prefer?
Sorry?
We have a question from Florence. Florence, did you want to ask it? Her question was, what white do you prefer?
I'm using a titanium white, but you know, it doesn't really matter. There are some more, there's titanium and zinc, but I have another one here. Let me see if I can find it. An iridescent white, which I sort of keep in case I have to, oh, you can't see it there, but it's a iridescent white. It's almost like a yellow glow to it, like a shininess to it. Yeah. In case I'm painting something white and I want something even whiter, you know? Yeah. But it doesn't really matter which white. If you feel that your colors aren't mixing nicely and they're a little too translucent and you want them opaque, change your white. You want something nice and opaque. Okay, and different brands are different. I prefer Gamblin. I've tried a couple of Winsor & Newton tubes, and it is different. The pigmentation is different, and it mixes differently, and there's more translucence. In fact, this CAD medium that I have on here is Winsor & Newton. That's why I put it on so thick, because it ends up being a little translucent, which I wasn't expecting. You know, it's my first time with that tube. It's like, whoa, I can see right through that. So I just paste it on. We all have to adapt. Yeah. Okay, if you want, I can show you the apple video, painting the apple. So it's the same thing as what we've done now, but just we're going to repeat it with apple. So instead of using all the yellows and the dark, medium, and light yellows, we're now going to do the dark, medium, and light greens. So, but it's the same process. And we can talk while that's happening. So if you had any questions, that's fine. We can talk over that. Let me see. Is this happening for you guys?
Yes, it is.
I just need to make it bigger. There we go. Okay, so I'll start it. There we go. So you can see I've taken a photograph. I haven't marked this picture up with the darks and lights, but you can see very clearly that I took that apple picture in the sun outside. So there is the darks and the lights. When you're looking at a photograph, you just need to identify two values. The 3 and 4, those subtleties come later. You know, when you're ending the painting off, it's like, hey, I can find something a little lighter or a little area that's slightly darker. But if you can find 2 and paint 2, you're all the way there. So you can see I'm marking in the different values. And if I get the position or whatever wrong, it doesn't matter, because you can change that later. The other thing I do is I paint fruit when I'm, you know, learning and teaching many times. So these tiny little canvases that I'm using, I don't paint like that in my normal practice. I paint much larger. But taking tiny little canvases and doing it over and over and over again, the exact same subject, you learn so much about how to do that. And that is the the best thing I can share with you is just repeat the same thing over and over on tiny little canvases that you don't care about, or just little panels. And then all these principles will just form their own, they'll become your own, and you'll have your own way of interpreting them. So you can see the exact shade of dark that I'm using is not super important, but it is, I can see right now it's a chromatic black. I use my 3 primaries together. It's the same muddy sort of dark that you get from your 3 primaries. So even on the bowl, I've added in the line for the dark and the light, and you'll see there's 2, it happens twice. There's 2 places on the bowl. And this is kind of like the underpainting, where I'm just blocking in the basic dark colors. And then when I add the green on, it doesn't even really matter because it picks up that dark as well. Where have I gone? Yeah. So you can see I've got like a bluey green there, like with the French ultramarine blue, more blue in there than yellow. This is not speeded up, is it? But yeah, you can see it's the whole thinking process. The whole thing is 20 minutes.
Well,
It's just figuring that out. If you get the color slightly wrong with oil paint, you're so easily forgiven. You just literally add the other color that's missing on top, and you can blend it in right there on your canvas. You know, it gives you that leeway. Not so much with watercolor. I don't know, a lot of you were watercolor artists, so you can't do that. But from the theory point of view, it's the same. Getting your 3 values, keeping them separate, and only letting them touch towards the end, so they don't muddy up and make the whole thing one color, and then you've got to start again, you know. So getting that drawing in the beginning is key. So when I'm mixing like the light green, I will use my light warm blue, the cerulean blue, and I'll use my lemon yellow. So I've got my 2 light warm colors making that light green. And if I want a darker green, I'll use my cold French ultramarine blue and my cold alizarin, and maybe the cad yellow medium, just to warm that up. So I would use all the colder, that would make me the coldest, darkest color. And you kind of need that when you're painting one fruit, and you need cold and warm. You need to have the cold and warm of each color, of each primary to start with. So you can see I'm adding a little bit of the highlights in there. There's some reflected light in the shadows. And the color of the priming, like I've primed that one in red, is very important actually. It really does affect the colors that come up and how you play with those colors. So I like the red with the green together. I felt that popped. But with the lemons, when I was painting on the red, I ended up having more of a pink plate because I had to bring that red in. Yeah, so it's always dark to light in oil colors. I know with watercolor, it's not, it's the opposite, I think.
True.
So you can see now I'm painting in the lights, and you'll see after that it'll look done. That's literally as far as it, I mean, as complicated as it is. People always think that like a white bowl or white plate is very problematic to paint, but it's not. It's the same thing, just like I showed you here. You just add a little color to that white, and then it becomes quite alive. And the white bowl, you'll see it gets done really quickly, just with that neutral that I had mixed in the beginning. I also have a lot of these demos on my Instagram. If you want to see, like, I don't do the long one like this. This is 20 minutes, but speeded up version of these. There's quite a few of them on there, painting fruit. So if you want to just look and see that method over and over again, and you say, okay, I've got it, you know, I can do that. Because it's really simple. It's like 3 steps. I don't do the drawing on the Instagram video, so that part is hidden, like the actual marking on the photo or on the actual fruit. And I think that is key, because if you can't see it very clearly, you really can't, there's no way you can paint it. And see it in an abstract and simplified way. That's the key to painting values. So I hope this is helpful. And you can see already that apple has popped. We have an apple there. And it was really just 2 blocks of color. And then you just let them touch slightly. And of course you can come in and finesse, like, oh, it's got a lump there, and you can finesse that or whatever, but the bulk of it is there. And you can't go wrong from that. If you've got that right, then everything else falls into place.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you have shadow color, it still looks green on the apples, and in the lemons, it still look like lemon yellow. What do you mix with your main color to make it still look like that color?
The funny thing is, I think it's a trick of the eye, because I didn't even really mix them any different. So your eye sees a yellow lemon, it's supposed to be a lemon, so then you see the shadow as a lemon shadow. I mean, I did come back and add a little bit of more yellow on top of that neutral here and there, but not everywhere. And the same with the apple. I added a little bit of a dark green on top in places, but nothing really different, no. And that's where you've got to start to think more abstractly, just about the value, and then the color. This is the local color in the middle, the cad medium. Your eye will make the whole lemon look that color for some reason.
Yeah.
Like when you look at those apples, you think they're all that light green.
On a similar point, Laurie has a really good question. She asks, is the background color purposely the contrasting color to the main subject? So if the apples were red, would the background have been green?
Yes, that's what I like to do that. And I think with traditional landscape painting, people who paint like very realistic plein air painting, they tend to prime in a burnt red color, like burnt red earth, or a red of some shade. And that's because a lot of the landscape is green, you know, and you get that pop. Like you don't see the red coming up. Sometimes they'll leave a little bit of red for you to see, but sometimes they don't. But it adds vibrancy to the color that you're putting on top. So the green on top of the red, even though the red is gone, is affecting the green and making it more vibrant. Because if I painted this black or some other color, these apples would be dead, you know. So you do need to have that other color underneath. It doesn't literally come, I don't know how, it just affects the vibrancy of the color. You can try it out yourself. Prime something black and paint an apple on it. It will not look like an apple. Not a good one anyway. Yeah, it's just very hard to do that over a color like that. So yeah, you can see there I've painted the apples. We just have the bowl coming up. And in these, I haven't let any red come in between the gaps between the apples. That's a style that landscape artists use quite a lot. They actually let that red come through. But I'm not doing that here. But that would add another level of vibrancy. This is a little bit more realistic than that. And you can see if you wanted to simplify your brushwork and just do a couple of really simple brush strokes, you could have something, you know, in a style all of your own, but still have the values there. And then I think we do the white ball And the thing with the shadows is you must never forget that there's the neutrals, but because you mix them from primaries, your neutrals from primaries, you can always push them slightly. So within one shadow, try and have at least 2 different colors. I mean, close together, like the same value, but a little bit more red or a little bit more blue to contrast your subject or your whatever else is going on there. You can be playful like that, and that makes it more interesting. So you can see I'm just literally doing the lightest white there, that area, not touching anything just yet. The highlight, and then the medium darks, which I already have on there. That's my very neutral dark. So the dark is always mixed from your primaries. And I'm just dragging that up. And if you can see in a simple way like that, like a really simplified way of looking at it, then you can paint it like that. So it looks like a complicated subject, but it's really not. You just simplify it to those 2 values. And the third comes along because you'll have a highlight or a fourth even for a really dark area. So it's all about seeing. Took a bigger brush there.
Does anyone have any more questions that they'd like to ask Leanne?
I have a question. What is your Instagram name?
Leanne Hamilton Studio.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's Leanne Hamilton Studio. And then my website is leannehamilton.com. But I have the videos on the Instagram. And they're nice to watch because it's exactly what we've discussed here, but without the drawing on the photograph. But you can just see it happen again and again. And then you can see it doesn't really matter what you're painting. It's the exact same process. It's just simplifying your seeing of the subject. Even if the subject is really complicated, like flowers, you just simplify the seeing by marking it up and then painting it like that. I think a lot of people just say, oh, just simplify your seeing, but they're not showing you exactly what that means. And I think by marking it up, you're making it clear what simplified seeing means, literally what it actually is.
Mm.
Do you have a favorite brand of brush that you like?
I use a rosemary brushes. I do like them. I use the synthetic ones, evergreen longs. They're synthetic and they work great with oil paint. And I've got them in all the different sizes. They wash well. And I just feel comfortable using synthetic, so it's not an animal. Yeah, I'm really fond of them. It makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Especially if you want to blend nicely. But there are a lot of other synthetic brushes out there. Okay, that was that. Apple's done. So right from the drawing all the way to done. And it's just because of the simplified seeing. That's what makes it so easy to do. I'm not sitting there struggling what the next color brush stroke should be. There's no thought at all. I just, after I've drawn in those with a Sharpie, there's nothing else to think about. So you just add your highlight in right at the end. Yeah. So I hope that transfers into all the different exciting mediums that you're all using. Or there's something of value there for you. But making that dark neutral is very key. And it's a chromatic black, meaning that I mix it myself from primaries. Another great chromatic black is French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. But I didn't put any browns on my palette today. It was just primaries. So you can see in the shadow now, I'm just marking up an area that's slightly lighter. But that's like a touching up thing at the end. The main process is getting the two values on the object. Yeah.
Leanne, this has been so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm so delighted that you could do this workshop.
Yeah, thank you, Eileen.
Absolutely, absolutely loved it. You've
Yeah.
made doing the fruit just seem really unintimidating.
Yeah, that's the goal. Break it down to the actual steps, and I hope I did that, and that it's not a mystery, because it isn't a mystery. There's actually a technique there. I do want to share one painting I have behind my easel. So I think if we're done with this painting, I think we're at the end. Let me have a look. I think we're at the end here. Yeah. So if everyone feels that they've seen this, I would like to just do the room share again. So I have a painting behind my easel of a black and white painting that I painted over it was just a bunch of other colors, leaves and things, but I wanted to just throw that out as a contribution to the Rancho Cordova Arts Council theme, black and white +1. I used the black and white values just over a dry underpainting. So it could have just been one color and that would have been your +1. So the whole thing is just values, black and white. So there's no mixing of the black with any color. So it's not muddy, it's just black. Okay, so that's my suggestion for your very exciting theme. But yeah, so I've really enjoyed showing everything. So you can see my palette down there, it didn't make too much mess. I've really enjoyed showing you all that. And if you want to look at my videos, it's on Instagram, that's Leanne Hamilton Studio, and my website's leannehamilton.com.
Thank you so much, Leanne, for sharing all of that. It's been an absolute delight to learn from you. So for those of you who would like to stay, I have a 5-minute video, which is a sped up time lapse of how I did the black and white +1 idea of a painting collage. So if you like, I could share that now. And it's just for a theme that we have coming up for a at Rancho Cordova City Hall. You might want to submit something, and we always like to do a workshop that helps with getting some ideas. I typically paint with acrylic, and so doing a painting collage is actually a completely different thing for me. So this is my first time, and it was quite fun. So I'll just share that with you now. Hang on a second. So this is that's the end result, and it's time lapsed really fast, but essentially I made different color swatches for that was yellow mixed with ochre and as the main color, and then I gradually added black each time, or gradually added white. So this was just the random idea. I took a photo of some bananas at home, and then I put it as a black and white photo using Google Photos, and then printed it out. So I just made the like figuring out values aspect, super easy. Can everyone hear me? I'm not actually, I just want to be sure you can actually hear. Okay,
Yes.
great. Thanks. So all of this was really approximated. I was putting them like kind of on top in order to get the rough size of each like aspect of the collage. And I did a rough drawing to figure out where things go. But I decided to start off with all of the darks. So I started off with where all the black shapes looked. And the main thing for me when I paint is I try not to think of I try not to think of painting an object per se. I'm just looking at where are the darks and the lights. And so the outcome is always a little bit more, I feel like it's a bit more interesting when I'm thinking of it that way, rather than, oh, I'm painting a jug, or, oh, I'm painting some bananas. So instead, I'm just always looking for, okay, well, where's the funny random dark shapes, and where's the funny random mid-range grays, and it makes painting less about painting objects and more about just exploring what I'm seeing. Yeah, so I just decided I'll go through from like darks to lights, and then yeah. Has anyone else done collages like this, or any collage work before?
Well, this is Marian. This style is fabulous for using fabric. You know,
That's true.
fabric value. It's a brilliant idea. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was surprised. It's kind of finagling, like, you know, doing a lot of cutting, which must be just like with fabrics. So it definitely takes time to do this. But the outcome is just a little bit surprising. Like, I like that you don't have full control over what it's going to look like.
Right.
A few of us, this is Lori, a few of us mentioned that we're doing spirals, and it's actually a collage technique using fabrics. So I think the four of us that are here that are fiber artists are participating in that exercise. The teacher is Susan Carlson.
Okay, that's great. Really interesting.
And even though it's fabric, we primarily are using glue to start. And then we're using threads to hold it down and to add accents.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's useful to know. Yeah, because that's a really good idea to use glue. That would make things way better. You can, yeah, time-wise, I'm sure that makes a difference.
How are you adhering your pieces?
This is just using a standard glue stick that I found around the house. Yeah.
How long did it take you to do this? Finished?
This took an hour, almost 2 hours.
Oh, that's fast.
Which for me felt like a really long time. But I actually, you'll see, because there's lots of jumps. This is like, I did it on different days. So I actually only did it in like 10-minute blocks of time. So that was actually one reason I liked doing this, was because I could just choose one color swatch that I was going to use. Some of it I didn't, you can see some of it I didn't video when I was doing the bananas. But I liked that I could just choose one color swatch and be like, okay, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to find all the spots on this page that match this color swatch that I'm holding. And it just makes it less intimidating and more of a exercise, rather than, oh, I need to make something beautiful, or I need to make something that looks good. Instead, it's just more about, oh, what's going to happen when I do this?
I can see in some cases you're nesting the two papers together, but Otherwise, when you place on top of the other, how many layers thick are you going?
So I tried really hard to do what you're saying with like nesting them, because I thought it would just be an interesting look to use. I'm using the darks and the lights in order to create interest, not just identifying the values. And then it was more for the accents that I ended up doing the like placing on top. So almost all of it is actually nested. And then only like the dots on the dots
Wow.
on the bananas and a few of the black areas of the bananas are placed on top, but about 95% of it is actually fitting, so it's all just one
Layer.
paper, or like one
Nice.
layer.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad
Longer.
I'm glad you liked that. Does anyone have questions about that at all?
That's amazing. Thank you for showing that.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad you like it. I did especially for this tutorial. So I'm like, oh, I hope this turns out to be something somewhat presentable. Because I just didn't know what it was going to be like, and yeah, it turned out to be quite an interesting little exercise. So oh, I can see there's some chats. Oh, yep, everyone's saying lovely, thank you. And yes, Marsha's saying yes, the member show is coming. Oh, we also have the Micro Masterpieces fundraiser, which is a 6x6 show. And what we would love, if you happen to be living in the Rancho Cordova or Sacramento area, we would absolutely love it if you're able to donate a 6x6 artwork. It could be fabric on a 6x6 panel or canvas, or it could be anything that fits within the 6x6 size. And it would be just, we would so appreciate it if you can donate something. What we end up doing is putting it on a, it'll be on an auction, an online auction. It's called 3232auctions.com. And then the bids start at $20, and the proceeds from those donations go towards keeping Rancho Cordova Arts going. We're a nonprofit, and so to keep us being able to provide free opportunities to the community, we do this fundraiser. That's the big one, and then also we receive some money from the councils, and in return we provide these free opportunities. So if you are able to make something, we also have canvases available that you can take to use for that project. So if you do need a canvas, you can let us know. And yeah, we really hope that you're able to contribute. We would really appreciate it. When it is, let me just double check 1 second.
Available
All right, Masha, did you want to tell them the dates?
let's see. Let's see. You want to turn them in before, turn them in at the MAC or to any of the board members during the Gourd show at the MAC, which is in mid-May. And then I think it's the 9th, Mother's Day. Mother's Day is the deadline, but you can turn them in anytime. And then the online auction itself will be the first week of June, June 1st through June 5th. That's Tuesday to Saturday. And one of the really great things about this auction is not only that it does not ask for any credit card information to sign up as a bidder, but if it comes down to the wire at that deadline on Saturday night at 8, and somebody's hot on the trail, a couple of people are hot on the trail to get that piece, then it will extend the auction by 3 minutes at a time until the highest bidder has gotten it. So Edith is our chair, Edith Lefevre, and maybe, I don't know if you have anything to add, Edith, but take it away if you do.
I just think it's going to be really fun, and I think 32 options is real easy to use. And if you buy more than one, then we'll make every effort to mail them out together, or you can come pick them up. Because coming and pick them up would be, then you'd be able to see the show that's at the MAC. So we encourage you to do that and to get involved and to donate. It's really fun. And they're just small, 6 by 6, and you can pick them up. The canvas is at the MAC when the MAC is open, and they will sign them out for you, and then you return them, and then we'll make sure that we get the picture up on 32 auctions so it can be included.
Oh, thank you, Edith, and thank you, Leanne, for this wonderful workshop. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been a real treat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Leanne.
Oh, I can see some clapping. Yay.
Learned so much. Awesome.
All right. Well, take care, everyone. Enjoy your Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.